Hello. Welcome to Rigging for Animators. So you guys could have gone to one of those awesome amusement parks here, such as Epic Universe, but you came to listen to me talk about some epic rigging. So thank you for coming, and to Unreal Fest Orlando. So I'm going to start off the presentation with a video from one of our partners, and you can see some of the tools in action. So what did you just see? That is a trailer from Agora Studio. We've been partnering with them, and they've been learning all of our animation and rigging tools. They built all of that in Unreal. They built their own custom rig modules. They animated it, rendered it, and we're going to be releasing a sample with all of this to everybody very soon, so you can learn these tools a bit easier. We know that's a big problem for our tool set, is we're trying to give more education out. So really excited about this. So who am I? I'm Chase. I've spent the last 20 years building digital characters, and I've spent the last 20 years using Maya. I've used Maya to build everything from Star Wars to Oscar award-winning animated films such as Rango. So why am I telling you about Maya? Because we have a bit of a choice to make. And it's a choice in how you think about rigging an animation. So you're here, you're taking the red pill, and we're going to go down this rabbit hole. And so the process is not the same between Maya and Unreal for rigging and animation. It's really important that you change the process and change your thinking when you're coming into our tool set. And by changing the process, as a rigger and animator, it really opens you up to new ways of animating and building really cool characters. So I'll admit, it's easy for me to just say, hey, change your thinking, right? So I thought for this talk, it'd be a great idea to try to get you started on that path and give you some framework, and start to think about some of the problems I hear a lot from all of you, and how you can better learn our tools and how to think in a different way. So the goal really is to not replace Maya, right? It's to replace your mindset. And this frees you from a lot of previously conceived concepts. You're not locked in that same box. And it makes rigging in Unreal become a lot easier. And thinking differently lets you explore a lot of new ways to rig, such as physics. So we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. And I'll admit 40 minutes is probably not enough time for me to go over everything. So what I'm going to try to do is demystify some of the core main concepts for our tools that I hear a lot from our customers, and get you going on this path if you're interested in our tools. Okay, so rigs in Unreal are quite a bit different than Maya. I tried to boil this down to like the three most basic components of like what a control rig is or what a rig is in Unreal. And it's composed of three assets. The skeleton holds the bones in the skeleton, and then it connects to the skeletal mesh. This holds the skinning geometry and the weights, the skin cluster, essentially. It also has materials hooked into it, but you can think of this as like your mesh and your asset and bones. Then you have the control rig, and it connects to a single skeletal mesh asset. But what's interesting about this is that you can point it to other skeletal meshes. This control rig contains the puppet, the rigging controls, the IK, the constraints. So it's a big container of just rigging, essentially, you can think of. Okay, so Maya, you can kind of roughly think of it as you connect things together. And as you connect things together, they stay connected through the life of that connection. And if you think like this in Unreal, it's wrong. In Control Rig, that's not necessarily how things work. And graphs in Maya show you how things are connected with the dependency graph. I'm old, I still use the hypergraph when I'm in Maya. But this isn't how Unreal graphs work. You don't want to think this way. If you start thinking this way, you're going to get lost very quickly. All right, and scripting and writing code in Maya for your rigs. You really can't rig in Maya without writing, what you can call a build script. You have to code it all, or you can't reuse all of that. You don't need to do that in Control Rig. It's completely unnecessary. This is my script editor. I have tons of tabs open. I don't know what that code does, by the way. It just looked like rigging code that I had built a while back. Really, how you need to think is procedural. Control rigs are reusable immediately. You can think of the graph as your build script. Scripting the graph is not really necessary. You're kind of doing double the work because that's what its intent is. It's a framework. It's a blueprint for your rig. So let's compare kind of how the two systems work together a bit. So Control Rig presents an event-based workflow. You execute rig logic with nodes. Basically, you provide instructions for how the rig will build itself. And if you compare this to Maya, Maya requires you to think about what I mentioned before, inputs and outputs, connecting things together kind of forever. And as you connect things together, and then other nodes in Maya, all the nodes get evaluated with the dependency graph. It's a big waterfall effect. So while that's really beneficial in many regards, it actually can provide a lot of headache for rigging. You lose a lot of control. And this is where, really that build script concept for rigs kind of came about, is that you can do something once and reuse it later. So as I mentioned, there's no build scripts required in Unreal. Instead, the rig, while you're building the graph, creates a set of instructions inside what we call the execution stack. This is really powerful because it gives riggers full control over how a rig operates. It's literally built for rigging. And so this is a great slide from Helge Mati. He's our lead engineer for Control Rig. And this breaks down kind of the anatomy of the graph and how it operates. We're really in the weeds here, but this is nice to see kind of like what's happening. And what's really interesting about this is the execution stack, which you've seen a little bit of. That is all bytecode. That's why Control Rig runs so fast, because these set of instructions can execute incredibly fast. So I'm going to build like the simplest control rig we can possibly build, literally a bone and a control. So you can drag a lot of things into the graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the transform of this control, and we're going to set the transform of the bone. And I'm not connecting these together. I'm literally querying the position and setting the position of the bone. And at any moment, I can change what position it's looking at. So I'm just going to build a little transform here myself and just move it up in Z a few units. But if I want to be really creative, I can add these together, and now it's moving it up and it's moving it with the control. So you can see on the right side, it's actually executing, it's building me up my execution stack. Okay, and so to prove that this isn't connected, I'm going to build another set transform. And in Maya, you might see that reflected. But if I connect it now, it might look like that first set transform isn't executing, but it actually is. It's still in the instruction set. But you're setting it again, so it goes away. Okay, so as I mentioned, Control Rig is an event-based system. And there's two events you really need to care about. I think if you're coming to our tools new, we have a couple of events. You can make your own events, but the two key ones is the construction and the forward solve. The construction builds your controls, lets you do something what we call spawning. That's a common term in Unreal, and it means the same thing in Control Rig. You can spawn bones, spawn controls, spawn nulls, and create the structure for your rig procedurally. The forward solve, you want to put all your constraints in there, your IK handles, and all the math to drive all the rigging. And so I hear this a lot. In Maya, in animation in general, animators want their controls zeroed out, right? And as a rigger in Maya, how you do it, you add a little group above your control, and you can send the transform up to that. You don't have to do that in Control Rig. We have a hidden transform on every control. Controls are first-class citizens in our system. So literally with the click of a button or a checkbox in the graph, you can send, there's no reason why any control shouldn't be zeroed out at any point. All right, and so in a talk yesterday, someone said a great quote, and I'm going to use it, the hell that is parent constraints. And so we wrote a space switching system a few releases ago, actually, and it's gotten so much better. But we wanted to kind of deal with that parent constraint issue. So space switching is built right into the rigs. As a rigger, I don't have to author a tool or do any extra rigging to make this work. And what's really interesting is that as you switch spaces, it doesn't pop. That was a big thing, because parent constraints have a lot of popping nightmare with them. You can just change the space of something instantly, and it won't pop. Okay, and get back to proceduralism. Really, the core part of the procedural system is the for each node. I remember exploring Houdini many years ago, and I discovered their for each node, and it was mind-blowing. And it works the same way, except this is built for rigging, right? So to demonstrate this, I thought we'd build a quick FK arm. This is also a very simple rig to build. So I'm going to get some data, and we're going to build a for each node, and we're going to loop over it. And so I'm thinking procedurally here. I'm going to spawn a control, and I'm going to tell it to be a transform type control. And so I'm going to say, hey, loop over all my bones, and we're going to get the parent of each bone, because I want to build another structure that's a structure of controls. And with a little trick, you're just passing data in, and within a few clicks and a few graph nodes, now this is a procedural rig that will build on any bones I input into this little loop. And so now, just like the example before, I'm going to get to the position of each one of these bones and tell the control where to go. And I'm also plugging it into that offset transform. I'm sending it to that little hidden transform above so my control stays zeroed out. And so now we have a little separate control structure for FK. All right. And to prove that this is more like a tool, I can just swap this array, and now it's building on the leg. I don't have to go and build that whole thing again. And you can save all this stuff, wrap it up in the functions, and do all sorts of crazy stuff in here if you want to keep going. So forward solve, same thing, except I'm just going to parent constrain it. That's usually how you do an FK rig. You build a parent constraint and constrain the bones to the controls. And so doing basically the same process, and now with a few nodes, we have the FK arm. So this will be here later. You can go try to recreate it if you just want a really simple FK arm. This is usually how I build them. I usually start here, and you can then start exploring all the other cool stuff we have. Okay, IK handles. IK handles in Control, yes, work a little differently than Maya, but at the core, it's the same thing. The basic IK node in Control Rig is not really basic. It's just that the algorithm underneath is basic. It's performant. It's mostly the same as Maya's two-bone IK handle. They actually have a bit more stuff in it, but this is quite a performant node. So you have that as an option. There's some other IK options, but let's build the arm as IK. So same thing. Nice little trick is you can build all your controls in the hierarchy by hand, like doing right-click stuff. If you convert it to a module and back, it'll generate the construction script for you. So if you don't want to go and hand build up all those nodes, you can do that. That's kind of a fun little tip. Okay, so pulling the basic IK here. It's a lot of stuff to configure. So what we ship is a thing called the two-bone IK. This is not a node, this is a function. It just wraps that node. It just makes setting it up easier. So now to build an IK system, I just have to configure this node. And so you can do really cool things in Control Rig with a system like this, in that a lot of problems I see in rigs is that the pull vector is in the wrong place. So with a bit of math graph underneath this, I can find the exact position of the pull vector and not get popping with my IK. So I'm using this handy little node. You give it your 3 bones, and it outputs where the pull vector should go. It's kind of magic. So then I can come and plug this all up, configure my IK 2-bone node, and my pull vector should be in the exact same spot. I'm going to show the controls. Said we're in the weeds. I wanted to show this so everybody can try to recreate this later if they'd like. Okay, so configure this node. I got all my inputs in there. I'm just giving it bones, giving it my end control, kind of the end effector. And with one node in the forward solve, we have an IK handle and no popping. And from here, you can now take that FK rig, this IK rig, and you can start adding very similar blueprint logic to Control Rig to do IK-FK switching, or keep going and build crazy setups. Okay, so something I hear a lot is, it'd be great if Unreal had a way to version your rigs. We actually do. In 5.5, we released something called variants. It was an experimental feature. We didn't advertise it a lot because it was experimental and we needed to test it. We have tested it. Our LEGO Fortnite team is using it. They've used it for the last 4 or 5 months and it's been working great. So in 5.6, I've versioned all the modules in Modular Control Rig. And so what's interesting about this is if you built a rig in 5.5 and you come into 5.6, it'll still use those old modules. So your rigs and animation won't break. And what's even more interesting is you can mix and match these versions. So if you don't want to upgrade, say, the arm, you don't have to. You can leave it in the 5.5 version and use the 5.6 version. So let's see, is this one not going to play? All right, so what we did was we actually, with the system comes tags. So at the top of the modular controller, you can now, with the versioning system, have a bunch of tags that display, and you can quickly get to your modules. Okay, so to create a variant, what you do, you have a module. I'm just going to make a quick kind of dummy module here from our last IK arm. I'm not going to go over the whole module system. There's a lot of stuff we have out there on building some of this. Going to tag it for biped. And so now when I come into my modular control rig, it's going to show up. So to create a variant, you have to right click. I had to go fast because we have to get through a lot today. And so you can make as many variants as you want. You can do 100 variants if you want. So now it's going to show up in here. Okay, and so now what I want to do is use the tags to mark it stable or outdated. And so this is a special little mechanism that'll basically control the viewing of it in the system. So as a rigger, I get full control over like what modules to deploy to an animator with this, or what modules exist in a rig. And we don't call it, it's not a one-way path for updating. We call it swapping because you're just swapping out these modules. You can swap to any variant you want. That's why we don't really call it versions either because it's not necessarily a version. I think it's more powerful than versions. So this is how you swap it. You right-click on a module and it'll usually point you to the stable one and you instantly swap it out. And you can see if your rig is working or not and keep going. Okay, so that's kind of like the basic things I hear. I want to talk about Matt Ringo, who just put out a video. Gold Coast last year, he did a really awesome, like very technical talk over like he worked at Weta and you can see what a rigger can do with our tools. And I love this talk because it's just like crazy stuff. And once you get familiar with the tools, understand rigging, he really shows like what is possible. So go check this talk out. It's definitely a good watch. Okay, so out of the weeds, we're going to talk about physics. And in 5.6, we've enabled you to rig with chaos physics in Control Rig. And this brings some really, really new ways to think about animation and rigging. So rig physics, sure, they enable like, cool physics-y things, but they also enable some new workflows that probably weren't possible before. So physics are a collision system, right? So you could imagine setting up a rig, which I'm going to demonstrate here, that collides the arms with the legs. And as an animator, you don't have to go and fix all the penetrations, right? So I can take his arms and it'll just kind of push the legs out of the way. I've had some questions come up around this, like, hey, could I use this at mocap? Or, live streaming my character and stuff. And you totally could. There's no reason why not. But as an animator, it can save you a lot of time, by being able to move the limbs around. Okay, so this is fun. Also in 5.6 is a new node called the locomotor. So I took this Kraken and I stuck the locomotor on it and he'll automatically walk. And not only that, I layered physics on top of it. So the whole thing has like a really nice, elegant flow. He's really big. And this whole guy's being animated with just 2 controls. So I'm getting some really interesting motion. And I mean, really, I don't want to rig the tentacles with thousands of controls, and animators don't want to animate that, right? So right here, I'm letting the physics do all the work for me. And you lose a little bit of control, but you still have quite a bit of control over this guy. He's doing some really fun stuff. Okay, so the locomotor is pretty awesome. The internet found it, so I thought it'd be fun to put some of the cool things I've seen on the internet. Ryan Cornell above, some awesome work. Let's see if he's, here I'll go back. Did this play? Nope. Okay, there's not going to play. But if you want to learn how to use this, Kieran Ritchie. stuck an awesome tutorial. That's why everyone's figuring it out. Go check it out. It's real easy to set up. It's kind of the same way as configuring that IK node I told you about. Same process. You configure it, and then you get automated walking. All right, so this guy's fun. I'm real excited about this. Rigging an octopus is really hard. So when I saw these physics tools, it was like challenge accepted. So we found an octopus, rigged it up, and really to test these tools out, like how far can we take it? And so you can see like he's colliding with the floor. The tentacles are being driven by motors, kind of like Davy Jones. And they collide with themselves, which is really interesting to me. And so I'm animating this with one control. I'm literally just yanking the control around, and the physics are doing everything for me. And so this is also running in real time. I've run setups like this in the past, and we'd have to kick it to a farm and wait 3 hours for a couple frames to come back. But I literally can just take this rig and yank it around and get crazy collision and interaction with the environment. And I have full control over this rig still. And so it's you can see all the motors in there, the little yellow lines. Those are all the motors driving the tentacles and giving the really cool animation. I'm going to turn the simulation off, and you can see what it looks like without the physics. So not doing a lot in the rig. The physics really are taking on most of the work for me. Here's a look at the control rig for it. Kind of the same thing, just jiggling it around. Yeah, keep in mind this is a demo spaghetti graph. Probably definitely clean this up for real production, but it was really fun to do this because I was able to mix all the cool control rig stuff we have with physics. I really didn't hit a blocker. This is using the chain harmonics node to drive all the tentacles. And I can still yank these around. I like this because I kind of tie it up like a rope. That's pretty neat. And so I also wanted to test, like, hey, how do physics work with modular control rigs? So I rigged the ramen bowl. My original concept for this was from a movie called Old Boy. There's a whole octopus scene. It's pretty crazy. But I was like, well, let's do that. It's the story of an octopus trying to escape this ramen bowl. So I had a lot of fun rigging this up. And so I wrote a physics module that I can just drag and drop. And we have a new feature in 5.6 called array connectors. So you can build a module and then dynamically add more things to it. So long as I just hit the plus and add another bone, it'll build like my little physics setup. So you can build setups where you don't ever have to touch a graph to interact with physics. We're not shipping this in 5.6, but we will be shipping some physics modules coming up in the next few releases for sure. Okay, so I've shown some people this. You've seen this at this conference. I wanted to show you how to get a basic physics graph going. So we're going to use that for each node I talked about earlier, and we're going to drag in some data, and I want to build physics all up and down this tentacle. Okay, so if you type in physics, you're going to see a lot of stuff. You want to use add physics components. So what that's going to do, you can see once I hook it up, I'm going to get a bunch of things. And this does a lot of work for you, right? And so you can turn these on and off. We've added a whole component system to control rig. You can write a plugin against it. This actually all lives in the physics control plugin. And interesting enough, you can mix and match. You can actually create all this stuff in the rig hierarchy by hand if you really want to. Okay, so I'm going to build a solver, and all these tools pick up the solver automatically. I need to build a control because I need some rigging to yank this guy around so it'll do something. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to scale it up so it's a little easier to grab. All right. Okay, so forward solve again. You see me a lot in the construction event, the forward solve. Do a parent constraint, like I showed you earlier with the FK rig. And the same process, we're going to hook up this control to move around this root bone. And so I've done a lot of physics in my career. And so you have to understand the concept of kinematic bodies and simulated bodies. So we're going to have to build a simulated body in a second. And to run the physics solver, we have to do this thing called the step physics solver. This basically says, hey, run my solver in my rig. And it's just going to fall to the ground when I do this because I have no kinematic bodies. The physics system doesn't understand that there's a skeleton here. You have to tell it, hey, there's a body, this is connected to a skeleton. So I'm going to build a few more nodes. We're going to come back to this one in a minute. This is the make articulation drive data. That's fancy terms for, I just want my springs to be a little stiffer. I want a stiffer tentacle. Okay, so we're gonna plug it in now, so it's still falling to the ground. But we have some springs that I can play with. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna make a kinematic body. So you can change the state of these. What's really cool about this is you can add logic in here. So you can imagine piping logic into this to change the state of what's kinematic, what's simulated at any given moment. And I'm turning off collisions for now just because we don't need it. All right, so now when we connect this back up, we're gonna run our sim, and now we get some movement. So if you're building like a chain or something, this might be all you need. Like a rope, looks pretty good, actually. And then you can keep going from here with mini nodes, or you can actually go and edit the nodes in the outliner. So there are a lot of stuff. There's a lot of settings. We have many plans to make this way more elegant. This is highly experimental for 5.6. I'm not gonna talk too much about our plans, but really cool stuff coming up. I know this is a lot of technical nodes and everything, but we're gonna try to make it a bit more artist friendly. That's a goal of ours. So now I have a tentacle with a couple nodes. We have this full procedural system. If I just swap my data out, it'll build on anything I want. And this is ready to animate. I can just drag this right into the sequencer. So I should do that in a minute. Yep. So just like any other control rig, there's no like waiting for physics or anything. You just drag it in and it will animate pretty much instantly. So, and how I built that octopus, that's where I started. And it just kind of kept waterfalling into more and more stuff. Okay, so I asked Danny Chapman, who he built these tools, and I was like, what are some things I should tell everyone about? And so he really wanted me to point out the component system because it's kind of hidden, but you can show all your physics bodies in the left side, and that is important for the next step. Let's see if this is play. Okay, so this was another thing he wanted me to show that kind of goes with that component system is, this excites me, sorry. You can import old fat assets. So if you build a physics asset 3 or 4 years ago, and you want to do something in control rig with it, we have a node that lets you import all that data and do everything I just showed you without having to build the procedural part of it. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna add a solver. It needs a solver to run inside of control rig, hook that up. All right, so this guy does not have a physics asset. I'm discovering that as I'm building that here and like, oh, I need to go build one. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna hop back over here and just really quickly build a fat asset. And what's really nice about this is if this is easier for you to work, if you know all the fat tools really well, you're gonna be able to pretty much start instantly using these tools. So I can come in here, and if you wanna work this way, you can. You can change all the settings in here and it's all gonna flow into control rig. All right, so now I'm gonna plug in that asset. All right, so we're not seeing anything yet because we haven't ran the physics solve. The construction event, runs only once. So we have to step the physics solver in the forward solve. And once we do that and give it our solver, it's gonna start, you're gonna see all the bodies up here. Okay, so now I have a connection to that fat editor. Yeah, everything's kinematic, nothing's really happening yet. You're just seeing kind of the rig moving around. Blue means they're kinematic. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna come over here and edit the fat asset. And I'm gonna change these to simulated and save it. And now when I come back to control rig, we should see some updates happen. Cool, so now they're simulating. So to me, that's a really awesome way of like, if you're familiar with that tool set and you kind of want to tinker with these, it's a great way to kind of like start learning and getting into control rig physics. Okay, switching gears for a little bit. So when I designed this talk, I asked our animators at Epic, I was like, hey, what could I'm doing a talk about rigging for animators. What are some things that would be valuable to you, like that you do and like you don't know how to do, or it's like, you need to demystify it. So Frederick Nielsen, who I work with, he worked on Doom 3 and showed me this part of the game. And basically this guy bursts through these pipes. And I love this because this is a very interactive moment, right? The character isn't just there, he's interacting with things, and it really brings a lot of dynamics to the scene, and you remember it. And this rung true with me because I did a lot of this like at ILM. I had a very similar shot where Hulk is chasing Scarlett Johansson and running through all these things. And so to me, that's what also brings characters to life, is interacting with things around the environment. It's not just the character itself. So I thought it'd be fun to try to recreate that. Another thing they asked for was, hey, how do you do first-person shooter stuff in Control Rig? Well, kind of conveniently, the new templates is using Control Rig for all the first-person shooter stuff. So I started here. Aaron Langmead did an awesome job. So you can see the Control Rig looking kind of morphed and stuff. That's kind of how this stuff works. But if you want a good starter point for setting up a first-person thing with Control Rig, I would just go here because it's a really great example. Okay, so I made this little kind of demo game. I got this environment off the marketplace. It's awesome. I think it's called like the Brutalist level or something. And I was like, let's have something crash through these pipes just to make this scene a bit more dynamic. So I took the dragon and I have some animation in here, and I'm going to have him crash through these. So the first thing I'm going to do, grab all my static meshes and make them into one static mesh. Okay, and then I'm going to convert this into a skeletal mesh. All right, I do a lot of talking here, so bear with me. So once we get this into a skeletal mesh, we can do a lot of cool things to it. We can deform it, we can rig it, and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So I'm going to come in here and start building bones for it. I'm not spending a lot of time on these bones. I think if I did this for real, I also wouldn't spend a lot of time on these bones. I just need this to be enough to animate it. I'm just kind of placing what I think here. I'm going to speed this up because you don't want to watch me place bones for 10 minutes. Okay, so getting all my bones, I kind of want it to open up and give some interesting effects. So once I have my bones placed, you should name your bones. We have a lot of really cool naming tools in the Skeletal Editor. If you give it hashtag, it'll auto-number it. We also added stuff to do prefixes and search and replace in there, so you don't have to build a tool to like name bones and things in your Skeletal Editor anymore. Okay, so just naming these guys really quickly, speeding up. I'm gonna go bind it. You really can just hit bind and accept. I'm just kind of seeing what my results will be. And my goal here is just to get something. I just need it to move. I'm not worrying about how detailed this is anymore. So I'm going to get something here. Okay, now we're going to fine tune it. I treat weight painting kind of like real painting. I like to layer it. You get something and then you kind of work it out. So I'm going to use our skeletal mesh editor. This lets you build bones and paint weights right inside Unreal. And a really cool workflow with this, especially for robots and mechanical stuff, is you can select the face or avert and use this flood button, and it'll just flood everything that's connected. And then you can just select your bones. This was an accident, but you can middle mouse the bones in the viewport. And Kieran tried to fix it, and I told him not to because it's awesome. And so I'm just going to go through and do that process over and over again until I get everything kind of worked out. So you can see it's flood, add, flood, add, flood, add, all in the viewport pretty much. And so this is another thing that came with Animators. Someone said, I'd love to learn how to rig the robot or the mech or a robot thing. And this is the same process. If I had a big robot, I would probably be doing this same exact process for that. So this kind of demonstrates that too. Okay, so now I have some cool kind of opening up of the pipes, and my bones are there. So as I mentioned earlier on, a rig in Unreal is composed of these three assets: a rig, skeletal mesh, and a skeleton. We've handled the skeleton, we've handled the skeletal mesh. Now we need to build the rig. I'm going to use Modular Control Rig because this is a great tool for rapidly prototyping things like this. I love the graph. I can work really quick in there myself, but I use this all the time, especially for this type of stuff. It's great for things that aren't non-characters either. So we're going to use the chain module. This has a really cool feature. I'm going to show you why. We're going to increase the control size just so I can see it. My root controls are getting really big, so I'm just going to crank those down a bit. Okay, so now you can see the blue controls are showing up. And now we're getting some movement. We got a little chain in there. So what I really like is this dynamics button. You click a dynamics button and you get a little bit of motion. This is not using the new physics tools. It's using what we call the spring interp node. I asked everybody what their favorite nodes were, and this was constantly coming up. And people love this node. It's just the spring. So I'm going to add a bunch of these around here because I want a little bit of movement with the rig as you animate it. I don't want to animate all that secondary motion. Okay, so just drag and dropping these on, really simple. And it builds basically an FK rig for me in all these bones. So I don't want to go set all those settings again. So new in 5.6, you can copy and paste settings. This is really awesome. And this came in kind of last minute too. So you can just Control V and it copies all of your little rig configuration. And so now that dynamics checkbox is checked on, and really quickly I have all these rigged up. Okay, so we have a rig. Still a little hard to grab, so I'm going to adjust the control size on the entire thing. So you can see that after I've built this rig, I can still come and adjust all the controls at once. I don't have to meticulously go through and scale the control vertices and stuff like that. So, all right, so I think this is good to go. All right, so now we need to swap out our pipes with this control rig. This control rig is attached to the skeletal mesh. So as I drag this in here, that's actually the skeletal mesh. And it's going to place the skeletal mesh and then plop in my rig. That's what just happened. Okay, but instantly I can just start animating this guy. Okay, so we're going to save this sequence. And I have a little game set up with a trigger. So you see this big box I walk through, and it triggers this dragon to come through the pipes, but nothing's happening yet. So right in my game, I want to just animate this guy. So I'm going to pop out a pie, and I'm going to come through, and I'm going to fast forward me animating, because also you probably don't want, it took me about 10 minutes in reality to do this. This is sped up 300 or 400%. But I'm just going to pose it and use that sequence that's being triggered to kind of animate against it. And so it's going through, just kind of roughing it out, not spending a lot of time on it. I'll admit, I'm not the best animator. I'm pretty good at this environment stuff, definitely not the character animator side. Frederick created this awesome dragon animation a long time ago. But it was really cool to just be able to place this in there and start interfacing with it. So now I've animated it, and with just a few keys, I have something cool. This was a mistake. I left this in here because I thought it'd be good to show. You notice the pipes were still there. I only checked the eyeball in the outliner. All the checkboxes in Unreal, I didn't check the visible checkbox down in here. So you have to go check that, or it will still actually show it pi. Okay, so now that I checked that, let's test it again. Hit pi, walk through my trigger box. It'll reset. Okay, and that's what I want to see. And I have, within about 15 minutes, rigged this whole thing and have a really cool kind of animation happening. I'm an overachiever, so I'm going to go a bit further because I can't stand it. But what's new in 5.6 is we've added the ability to add blend shapes on your meshes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to load up the instance. You can load your instance straight in here. So I'm seeing exactly what I see in Sequencer and getting that animation. And I want to create some shapes on this guy. I want to crunch it a little bit. It's feeling really kind of not interesting. But one thing I noticed is that I don't have enough resolution for my shapes. So this is really fun. I'm just going to remesh the thing live. If you did this in Maya, it would destroy your rig and everything you've done, but you can just literally remesh it, hit accept, and everything still works. So I just remeshed it. You could go to town and do all sorts of modeling on this if you wanted. And your weights and your rigging and everything will still stay intact. So now when I start sculpting, I get nice bendy kind of movement that I want on the pipes. Okay, so speeding it up here is a little pauses for. Gonna just sculpt some crunchy shapes. Probably aren't the best shapes, but I don't know if it matters. It's pretty dark. I just need it to look interesting. You have a lot of tools. I'm going through all the tools pretty quickly. We can also add custom tools into this. This is using the modeling tool set. So now I got my shapes done. We need to animate them. The way to do it right now is you have to pipe it through control rig. So if you think procedural, I'm going to build me a little blend shape control rig. And there's 2 nodes. This is actually a really simple control rig, and you kind of do this over and over again. So how shapes are transferred around in Unreal is with curves. So you can access those curves in control rig. So there's 2 nodes, get curve value, set curve value. I'm just going to name it A, and I'm going to build me a little control like a little animation channel that lets me key this control. I'm just going to hook it up to my A. So it'll make sense in a minute. Hang with me. Okay, so I'm going to add in my blend shapes control rig. And so now, just like Maya, I can come in here and select my little control, and I have a slider. If you've used blend shapes in Maya, this is the same exact thing. This is usually how you would animate it or hook it up to other rig controls. So now I can just key these on and off, and I can art direct it right in the viewport. So I'm just going to set some keys. I think I speed this up a little bit. And so you can imagine you're thinking procedurally. You don't necessarily have to build that control rig every time. You could preset one up or build one that kind of finds the shapes and builds it dynamically. So I'm going to set these up here. Okay, cool. So now you can see my crunching kind of happening. It's subtle, but it adds a bit more life to the scene. Cool. Yeah, I think we're done. That's probably enough. Okay, and something I've noticed is I want to add one more shape. I don't like how I don't get a little bit of anticipation, so I'm just going to add a bit of like anticipation to the scene to be like, oh, something's about to crash through. It's just that one little moment that kind of helps you think about that. So come in here, add another shape, and key it. And there we go. And I think I did all of this in about half an hour. That's also with me recording it. So here's the final scene. So really quickly, I took this kind of dull, lifeless area of this environment. This could be your animation or whatever, and just brought a lot of life to it by running through these tools. And so I wanted to go a bit further, and I was like, well, he'd probably hit this tank. He has these big horns. So I'm not going to rig this guy, and I really fast forwarded this, but I'm just going to shape it. I'm just going to add some shapes. I do the same process of remeshing it. You can, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to the mesh in here. Same exact control rig. And I come in here, I swap it out and animate some crunching on this guy. And with another 5 minutes probably, I'm also adding deformers in here just to kind of give it some life. So all the blend shape tools work with deformers. Okay, so let's try it out. And so as I walk through my trigger, it's going to reset, and we should see some interesting things. Okay, and it just kind of helps bring a little bit more life to it. And I could continue to iterate here and spend more time on this. Okay, so let's see this whole thing I built. I had a lot of fun with this. I used the first-person template and did that same process for all these little events. This is the mech. He has control rig physics on it. It's running live. I did a little transformation on him. And I kind of called this the control rig hallway. There's Bungee Man creeping around. So we're going to follow him down here. Just making little events. I'm a big fan of Half-Life. I really love that game because of all the scripted events that happened in it. And so I was kind of create, yeah, he's running from us, trying to lead us to the dragon. And so here's our scene we just built. And we have the dragon crashing through. And so it just added a lot of life. And I built this in probably, a day. It was just really fun to go through and really bring a nice little demo test to life. Okay, so let's talk about those blend shapes a bit more because I find this to be a super powerful feature. And so I have this little scene here. Yeah, I did it on environment, great for characters. I'm gonna take our dragon friend, load in my pose from sequencer using the running instance. And let's take a bit closer look at the tools. So I went through it pretty quick, that other tool. You can sculpt faces in here. You can move the mesh around, inflate. And you're getting direct feedback. This is all the materials. This dragon's pretty high res. It's pretty much instant. And I can sculpt around. You can change your name and make a new shape. This is all live. This is about how fast it takes. All right, and so now I can test them out. I have like a new little shape in here. It inverts it automatically for you. You don't have to do any crazy like inverting of the weight deltas. Okay, so come in here, just like Maya, I have a little pre-built control rig. As long as I name my shapes A, B, or C, it'll pipe through, and I've animated my shape. It changed the look of my little cinematic here. Well, let's get it out. We added a new plugin that lets you cache out all this stuff. So if you want to go to Houdini or do Fluid Sims hair, a lot of cool hair tools in Houdini, you can do that now with this tool. So generated a USD cache, and here it is. Okay, so this is fun. Last Seattle, we added a feature to the skeletal mesh tools that let you paint weights at runtime. So you can go into Pi and change your weights, and it'll propagate into the game instantly. So I discovered this works with the blend shape tools, which is pretty awesome. So I took the game animation sample. I love this thing. We all love it. It's pretty great if you haven't played with it. And I have both the editor side by side here. I'm just going to make some shapes, hit accept, and it propagates to my game instantly. So what's really interesting is that I can keep changing this. I can come in here to the edit mode, and I can kind of now art direct this while I'm in the game. And so I've changed the look quite a bit really quickly with just one shape. So you can imagine prototyping things out for your game environment or your cinematic. And the setup for this was quite straightforward. It was a post-process animation blueprint with a control rig in it, showing that same control rig setup I've been showing the whole time, just using that set curve value node. So yeah, so I can go from here and keep adding shapes, keep editing, and it works at runtime. Pretty neat. Okay, so a lot of stuff I covered over this. These are all the plugins you should care about in 5.6. I didn't go over the Animator kit much. We've talked about that a lot, but that holds all of our cool deformers and little helper rigs. Physics control holds all the physics stuff. Skeletal Mesh Morph editing tools holds all the morph tools I showed you, and the geometry cache level sequence baker holds the baking tools. We need to work on our names. They're pretty long. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this because Danny Chapman, who wrote our physics tools, did a lot of work. We actually wrote the physics tools for the Witcher 4 demo. We saw the horse and we were like, well, we were writing these physics tools. Like, let's see how far you can get. So we kind of just stuck him on it. We did some other things with control rig. The new Unreal Animation Framework, there's a lot of talks today on this. Go check it out for more details. I'm not going to deep dive into that. There's a lot of cool information coming out about it. But we use control rig for a lot of these components in here. And I thought it was a great example of how you can really mix all these control rig tools I'm talking about in a real life production and kind of what, ideas for like using them. So we used it for the horse slope warping. Let's see if it'll play. Let's try it again. There we go. So if you're not familiar with slope warping, it's basically taking the character when you just have the capsule moving around, they don't like orient to the ground correctly or adapt. So control rig is a really nice way to do that because you can like kind of rig your character and you can procedurally animate things. So this was a prototype of having the horse walk around. You can see all the physics and everything move with it. And so this is a better example. And so you can see that rectangle in the ground, that's the slope, and it's adjusting Siri. We also used a lot of correctives on her on the top to do that. And what's really interesting about this is we were able to propagate this to like a lot of the NPCs. So the NPCs get the same quality as Siri. There's really no loss there. That's NPCs running all the same stuff too. That's a real benefit to the Unreal Animation Framework. And I want to note that the Unreal Animation Framework control rig is like the genetic DNA with it. About 2 years ago, we split out into a plugin called the Rig VM. And so the new UAF is running on the Rig VM as is control rig. So they talk to each other really well. And so this is a really cool example Helga Mati built a long time ago with a look at. He was doing some prototyping. And some of this made it into the Witcher 4 demo. But this is on Echo, and I really like this because it's kind of shows you the ideas, thinking differently about how you rig. She's following this point and looking around, it's adjusting the rig and everything for you. And physics. So Danny Chapman was our engineer, and he was basically said, go, and built all these really cool physics on the horse, the hair, the reins. This is the hair system. It's driving all the hair grooming and everything that's in there. And I asked him too, like, what's a really cool part of the setup that I should mention, like at a high level? And he said the reins were really, really neat because he was able to have the reins slide through her hands and like rig them up and do things you can't really do in other systems. And it can have states. There's like states for it to lay down on the horse. And I've done reins before. I've rigged a lot of reins. It's really hard to do, and this came out really easy. And he actually said it was not too difficult to set up with all the cool tools he wrote. And this is from the keynote. This is kind of an overview of the horse. And you can see all the physics. That's all the systems running at the same time. So it's running live in the game. All right, so as I mentioned, being successful in our tools means changing the way you previously think about these concepts. And you really do have to rethink a lot of the stuff you know. All your base concepts come into our tools just fine, but there's a lot of places where if you kind of let go of these constrained boxes, you're really going to be much more successful in the tools. Okay, so this is kind of our big hits for 5.6. The QR code goes to our roadmap. We have a roadmap. Come tell us things. I read them. We all read them. We take that data. We take a lot of them seriously, so love to hear from you. Please come check it out and comment on all the parts. And everyone asked me about what are we doing next. So we'll go through this. Face rigging is a big part of what we want to do next. And not just face rigging. We want to create rigs that are things you've never seen before in Unreal. Highly stylized face rigging. We want to make skin weighting nearly automated. We want to bring a lot of the flavor from NG skin tools with non-destructive weighting into our tools to make you do everything faster. Clean rig visualization, getting rid of all those crazy controls on your rigs, keeping animators in context. You can be able to select your mesh and just animate it, Pixar style. Physics, so many cool things coming. Environment interaction, animating with physics. A lot of updates will be coming in the next year on that side. And then shot sculpting. If all the morph tools seemed a little clunky, we know that. We're going to clean that up into a really nice tool that lets you animate with morphs easily. Okay, last but not least, if you've ever used the MGear framework, I've talked to Miguel. He gave us a demo of the tools recently, and they've just released their first version of UE Gear. So the rig generates from MGear. So if you are familiar with these tools and want to hop into Unreal and explore things, this might be a great path to do that. Or if you're already using the tools, you have a path into Unreal with these, so go check it out. And that's it. Thank you to all the engineers that wrote all this stuff. Pretty great.